Lots to get through, including this. Now, here's an interesting turn of events. PM Keir Starmer quietly softening green policies amid growing pressure. Is that right? The gas boiler ban, electric vehicle quotas, boiler tax, clean energy targets, aviation fuel mandates are among the draconian net zero rules being rolled back. What does that mean for business, voters and our wallets? Let's speak with Harry Wilkinson, Head of Policy at the Global Warming Policy Foundation. Afternoon to you, Harry.
Afternoon.
What is going on here? Keir Starmer, I thought he worshipped at the altar of net zero.
Well, our net zero policies are akin to economic suicide, unfortunately. So the only thing that he can do is to roll back on some of these drastic measures because the damage that they would do would be so extreme. So if we look at these measures in turn, one of them was about the zero emission vehicle mandate. This sets a minimum target each year between now and 2030 about how much of total car sales have to be EVs. Now, there's fines for every vehicle that car manufacturers sell over the target of what they're allowed. And basically, they've now said that they can defer those payments to future years if they hit the targets in those future years. So it's a modest change. It will help. But this is a totally unrealistic plan anyway. It won't be enough. They won't meet those targets in the future years to be able to pay it back. We've also seen two changes on the boiler tax. You know, there was going to be a boiler tax of £5,000 for every failed heat pump sale. You know, that's been reduced then to £3,000 and now only to £500. But again, you know, this is imposing a technology on the public rather than allowing people to choose what they want to use.
Sorry, Harry, just on that point, who gets fined then in that equation?
So, you know, in this case, it's the actual boiler manufacturers and the car manufacturers in the case of the zero emission vehicle mandate. However, we can't separate companies and the public. Those companies have to find a way of paying those bills. And of course, they push up prices as a result. So it's always the consumer that ends up paying. There's no way that it can't be the consumer who ends up paying, however you want to dice it. So it's ordinary people who will end up paying the cost of these policies. You know, we have this madcap plan to have totally clean power by 2030. Again, that's not going to happen. So they've now said 95% rather than 100%, you know, 5% gas backup is still going to be there in 2030. But this still assumes, you know, an enormous amount of battery storage. It assumes that you overproduce. You build all these unnecessary wind farms, so you can actually be overproducing much of the time and then underproducing in critical moments. So we still need a full system of gas backup. 100% of our demand needs to be able to be fossil fuel backup for those periods when the wind isn't blowing. So this is an incredibly inefficient way of creating an energy system. And that from that inefficiency, of course, people will end up paying more for their energy bills.
Indeed. And I thought most people could... You haven't got to do much research to realise everything you've just said. That's the infuriating part about these kind of discussions. It's actually quite easy to just do the maths and realise the futility, the evangelism of what is going on over there at Ed Miliband HQ. But somebody's clearly had a word in his shell, like it seems, Harry, and said, you know, you've got to think again, mate.
Well, it will be fascinating watching, you know, with each and every climb down, what happens to Ed Miliband's reputation. He has this huge ideological zeal to try and achieve net zero as fast as possible. But reality, as you say, dictates otherwise. These will not be achievable policies. He will have to water them down. And so we'll see these announcements coming thick and fast. But the question is, how much damage is he going to do pursuing this crusade? And those kind of watering downs that we've been seeing, will they be enough to shelter people from the impact? We saw the chemicals industry, which was a British success story, that we did really well here. And it was connected to our oil and gas industries in those refineries where you can turn some of those fossil fuel products into chemicals. Britain did a great job at making chemicals. That industry is now down 38% just since 2021. Yeah. So we are sacrificing all of our industrial capacity, on the altar of net zero, and it's happening at a really dramatic and fast rate. So these slowdowns, these watering downs of net zero, it can't happen fast enough, and it isn't happening fast enough because we're losing all these jobs, and that's going to happen, well before we see Ed Miliband, finally realizing that the path that he is pursuing is a path of economic suicide.
There it is, Harry. Thank you. Very thorough, stark stuff from Harry Wilkinson, Head of Policy at the Global Warming Policy Foundation.